Greetings, Salam Alaikum. Congratulations to Global Friends of Afghanistan on the occasion of your first annual conference, held just over 1 year after the takeover of Afghanistan by the Taliban, and almost a year to the day after the last international troops left the country. In my view, this is not a day to celebrate. It's a day to remember, to reflect, and to reiterate a call to action. It's a great honor to address you. It would have been even greater to join you in person, but regrettably my travel and work schedule didn't allow it. My name's Richard Bennett, and I was appointed by the UN Human Rights Council as the Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Afghanistan on April 1st. I took up my duties on May 1st. I'm still new. My responsibilities include reporting on the human rights situation and making recommendations to improve it and to receive, seek, examine, and act on human rights information from all relevant stakeholders. I'm also mandated to assist in fulfilling the human rights obligations arising from international treaties that Afghanistan has ratified and to offer support and advice to civil society. My approach will be to integrate and highlight a gender perspective and to adopt a survivor-centered approach. My initial report will be discussed by the Human Rights Council on September 12th, and in October, I'll be coming to New York to report to the General Assembly. On May 15th, I visited Afghanistan on my first official visit in this capacity. I found a very different country from that which I'd seen during my previous periods in Afghanistan beginning in 2003. Let me say first, however, that the human rights situation in Afghanistan before the Taliban takeover was concerning. Aside from the civilian casualties and other sometimes underestimated impacts of the war, there was a climate of impunity. Women were only beginning to attain their rights and freedoms. Corruption was rampant, and it was a poor country with deficiencies in economic, social, and cultural rights as well as civil and political rights. However, there were some institutions supported by laws that provided oversight and a measure of accountability necessary for any well-governed society. All or nearly all of these institutions and laws have been swept away. One of these was the Afghan Independent Human Rights Commission, where I've been an advisor, and which was recognized internationally, including with A status at the UN, as an independent and effective national human rights institution. Other institutions to be abolished include, for example, both houses of parliament, the Ministries of Women's Affairs and Peace, the Independent Bar Association, and others have ceased to function. The 2004 Constitution was abandoned, laws were set aside, and the judiciary replaced. With a few exceptions, women were removed from public positions, including as judges, prosecutors, and lawyers. I'm fully in favor of accountability for crimes committed, whether domestic or international. It's essential for a stable society, and the lack of criminal accountability in the past has reinforced impunity. Accountability is essential for durable peace. Accountability to the people is also critical and must be built into the institutional framework in any country. Let me touch on a few of my observations and conclusions based on my visit and other information received. For clarity, this was an initial assessment mission, not an investigation. I was cordially received by the Taliban leadership. Several members met me, recognized the mandate I've been given, and confirmed that I could visit different parts of the country. And in addition to Kabul, I visited Kandahar and Mazar-e-Sharif. Mainly, I met with members of civil society, including at least 7 women's groups, other human rights defender groups, entrepreneurs, judges, lawyers, prosecutors, artists, former government officials, many others. I also visited schools, mosques, a prison, and a hospital. As I said at the time, Afghanistan is facing a plethora of critical human rights challenges that are having a severe impact on its people. The Taliban are responsible for the majority of human rights violations, not all, which they almost completely deny, nor are they addressing concerns raised with them. Their policies and drive for absolute control has created a society ruled by fear. Nowhere else in the world has there been as widespread, systematic, and all-encompassing an attack on the rights of women and girls. Every aspect of their lives is being restricted under the guise of morality and through the instrumentalization of religion, as I've also said previously, in conjunction with my special procedures colleagues, and with great respect to Islam and all religions. This is not only through the suspension of girls' education, which is well known. It will soon deprive a generation of women from not only education, but life prospects as a whole, but also due to Taliban edicts that have created severe barriers to livelihoods, freedom of movement, association, and expression. In fact, all participation in political and public life. One woman I met in Afghanistan said this: "During the last months, I wake up with tears. I tell myself this is a nightmare because the future looks darker every day. I had dreams to study finance and open my own clothing business. I wanted to travel to many countries and learn from them and bring this knowledge back to Afghanistan. From one day to another, my and my friends' lives and dreams were hijacked. I want the international community to remember that without them, we, the girls of Afghanistan, can never win this battle alone." In this short statement, there isn't time to catalogue in detail all the human rights abuses being committed in Afghanistan. You may be aware of them already, and I set them out in my forthcoming report. The humanitarian economic crisis, which has already caused immeasurable harm to millions, has not abated and is predicted to worsen, partly due to the interruption of international development assistance and the freezing of Afghan assets abroad. Afghans are suffering, and reigniting the Afghanistan economy while minimizing any benefits to the Taliban is critical. There is little or no sign that the human rights situation is turning a corner. Indeed, the daily reports of violence, including extrajudicial killings, disappearances, arbitrary detention, torture, heightened risk of exploitation faced by women and girls, including for the purposes of child and forced marriage, and a breakdown in the rule of law, gives me and my special procedures colleagues no confidence that the Taliban has any intention of making good on its pledge to respect human rights. As noted, the abolition of independent oversight institutions, especially the AIHRC, has left Afghans with no avenues for redress. The administration of justice has been compromised and the applicable law unclear, and judges and other judicial officials replaced, especially affecting women. Press freedom has been suppressed, with access to information curtailed. Journalists, human rights defenders, civil society activists have either left the country or quit their activities altogether and gone into hiding. Many educators, artists, academics have been forced to do the same. Attacks on religious and ethnic minorities, some of them claimed by ISIL-KP, have also flared up, emboldened by the inability of or unwillingness of the Taliban to protect them and on ongoing discrimination, especially against Hazara. Places of worship, schools, and vehicles have repeatedly been attacked. I visited 2 schools in West Kabul that were attacked. One of them last year during Ramadan, a girls' school where 85 girls at least were killed, and another boys' school that was attacked this year with more students and teachers killed. I also visited a mosque in a Shia mosque in Mazar-e Sharif, which was bombed by a suicide bomber during Ramadan in April this year. I listened to those affected, including at the schools. It was so moving to hear girls stand up and say that they had survived the attack and were ready to learn again, but were banned at this stage from returning to school. Finally, I have great respect for the many individuals, organizations, including Global Friends of Afghanistan, and some countries that have opened their doors and their arms to Afghans fleeing violence and persecution. There's much more to do. I note that panels at this conference include discussions on acknowledging the evacuation and resettlement and immigration issues. Every day, I receive appeals from desperate Afghans seeking help that I often feel powerless to give. There are also groups who've been left in US-administered camps in places like the UAE that need more attention. Friends, 1 year after the last troops left their country, Afghans feel abandoned and ignored. The spotlight needs to be turned back on their plight. More needs to be done. I'm delighted that Global Friends of Afghanistan is working on this. A year ago, my special procedures colleague said that the international community will be judged on our actions, our fortitude, and our willingness to make our words about rights have meaning in this decisive moment. Today, I reiterate this call. Thank you, Tashakkur. I wish you a successful and productive conference.